On today's episode, we'll be talking with Keith, a 15-year veteran police officer, and we'll talk about the struggles of being a police officer and what he's doing now to help his brothers and sisters and his peers, and what you can learn from what he's going to teach us today. I'm Bruno, and this is The Battle Plan. All right, guys, so we are here today with Keith. He is, like I said in the intro, he is a police officer with over 15 years of service. Thank you for your service, Keith. And he is also the CEO, just recently started Tier Response Apparel. He's obviously been injured on the work. I'll let him tell that story and what we can learn from that. So, Keith, welcome to the show.
Bruno, buddy, I appreciate you having me here, and it is absolutely a true honor to be speaking with you today.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much. And just to tell the audience, we were having a really, really interesting conversation that we'll probably share on future shows. Sometimes I think, Keith, that we should always record the pre-show because we get so much good nuggets in there. But hey, so as we know, with everything that's going on today with, obviously, the climate that's going on across the country, around the world, actually. It's not easy being a police officer. What is it like from your perspective to be serving as a police officer today?
It seems a bit loaded, but I'll see if I can pin that down to a little bit more. I think serving today is a lot harder than maybe when I first started, even though when I first started, it wasn't easy. But I think serving today, there is still a lot of amazing officers in every service. So not just policing, but across first responders that truly just really want, sometimes policy, procedure, government, just to kind of get out of the way and truly put the uniform on to just go and serve with the true intentions of our mind and heart, the way we would want someone to serve us or help us when we needed help, right? Like when you really want a police officer there, you don't want them there to be yelling and screaming and stuff like that. Like that, I don't sign up for those days at all. When you ask for a firefighter to put out your house and your fire and all that stuff, like you don't want to be arguing with somebody. A paramedic who's just trying to make you feel better, to get you to the hospital, to save your life, to get you to the doctors and nurses. No one needs to get yelled at for that. And it just, it makes it problematic when you're under a microscope per se, in ways that doesn't really help anybody. It doesn't help the connection with the community. It doesn't help your mindset when you're going in, being told that, you have to do this, you have to do that. And really, it's like, it goes against the moral grain of what we're doing here. Like, why are we here? Like, we're here to help people. I don't need to worry about this stuff. That stuff happens, it happens, but that's not my intentions I'm setting for going out today and helping the community. So like I said, like sometimes you just get all that stuff out of there and just give me the call and let me go help somebody, because really at the end of the day, that's my goal is, right? Like my goal is to help this person or help them in this situation so that they can feel better, or they can at least feel that when they talk to somebody about their experience with a police officer, it's not like, oh, this narrative. It's like, no, this person was amazing with me. They really helped me out. I gained a lot from them. And there's a lot of people out there that I think as first responders in general, we forget that actually truly appreciate what we do. It's just, we're stuck so, 95% in the 10% of the population that doesn't care for us, or,
right,
listens too much to the media and like feeds that stuff. When a lot of once you step out of that, and that's for me, once I removed myself from that, I really found people that were truly appreciative of what I do, very respectful of what I do. But yeah, they had the bad encounters, but at the end of the day, I can't imagine a world without police. I can't imagine a world without nurses, doctors, firefighters, EMS. Like, what kind of world does that look like, right?
You're absolutely right. And I want to highlight what you said. Everybody, I'm not going to say most, but there obviously the fringe there, but everybody that joins first responders want to help. This is what people forgot. We want to help. And what I'm seeing from my side, and maybe you can elaborate on that, is that now not only do you have to fight, because I have a lot of friends that are police officer, obviously, because I work with them. And the thing is this, is that you not only now have to fight the bad guys, you have to fight the image that is being pushed outside by the media. And you also have to fight with your internal policies, and with, you got to look a certain way, and you got to do a certain thing, and the lawyers and the things and all that. So basically you're fighting on all front, which puts a lot of pressure on you guys. Am I correct? Is that something that we could elaborate on? Or
Yeah, no, you're nailing it right then. And no, I will say, like, I will highlight that, like, everyone, when you said it, like, yeah, like, they don't go out there and want to do harm, right? Like, when you ask any police officer, anybody who signs up for emergency, why do you join? Because you want to, like, you want to give. And I will say this to anyone who might be watching that, may not like emergency services. I guarantee you, to the fullest extent of percentages in favor, that nobody dislikes somebody amongst the first responder community that harms the image more so than the people that work it, because it just makes it that much harder, right? Like,
right.
Nobody wants to have someone make the news doing something silly, because it's like, man, like, now it makes it even harder to go out and gain that trust back. So I'll just leave that for that, and someone can simmer on it. But when it comes to, really at times, maybe feeling handcuffed, I think I had some old wise guy that was feeding me good nuggets early on in my career. He's like, bad guys only have to get it right once.
Mm-hmm.
We have to get it right all the time. Like, we don't get a pass. We don't get the, oh, sorry, you didn't quite nail it, it's okay. Like, no, if you want a case to go through properly, you got to nail it all the time. Like, you have to have everything aligned, and they just need one mistake. But we need to be perfect all the time, in that sense of always having to be perfect, or always having to be switched into the highest level. So constantly, not double think what you're doing that might apply in a courtroom, right? Because people get 6 months to digest the 15, 30, 45 seconds of your event to the fullest tenth of a second, when you have literally 15 seconds with 15-second reaction time to do what you have to do, and you're just going in the best that you can. Mm-hmm. So it's not easy. And morally, I think sometimes when you see things in that work out, you're like, that's not right. Like, someone did something wrong, someone should pay for it. But it goes both ways, looking at outside looking in. Well, police did this wrong, they should, right? Like, totally, it's a give and take, right? But more so or not, like, you want the things to go right, and you want the things that go wrong be accounted for.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying and all these things. So it's not easy to be a police officer. We all know that. And then with the media pushing whatever narrative that they're doing, the mainstream one. But most people, even the population, most people, like you said at the beginning, are thankful for the police. They know that this is just a few individuals. Like I always share this story that when I used to own my gym, I got robbed. And they stole in the office, they stole the cash box, they stole all of our apparel and all that stuff. And they had stole one of the iPads, and they turned it on, and it showed me where to find my iPad. And I went to the house, and where I live, there's the RCMP was responsible for that, but they were undermanned. They sent one person, and the police officer showing there, he says to me, he says, we're always here. This is like an airport for stolen shit. And he went in, and the people were there, and he said, I know there's an iPad here, instead of saying we need access to the house because we know there's stolen goods, which once again, right? So they said, oh yeah, wait here. Here's the iPad. We found it on the grass right here, right? Now he lost access to the house, and he says, if we want access to the house, no judges will do that and everything. So I had to go and fill up a report at the PD. And the lady at the counter, she says, listen, man, I'm going to tell you something. The bad guys know the law better than us. It's that fucking crazy, right? So the thing is that that's a reality that I said, man, it's true, because these guys, they don't care. I'm talking about the bad guys here. They don't care. They're constantly in and out, and they got lawyers and they learn because they're smart people. They just got dealt bad lives and they took the left fork instead of the right fork, like most people do. And they end up in a situation where now they have to steal, they have to do whatever it is. And they kind of learn the ins and outs of how to get out of things, how to turn things around, and all these things. So once again, it's very important for people to start critically thinking about, hey, the type of work that you guys do is very, very challenging. It's difficult. And which is where I'm leading to the next question here is, how does that work affected you?
So in my case, in my journey, when it came to getting, eventually diagnosed with my PTSD, depression, anxiety, um, I kind of fought it along the way pretty hard because though I had some pretty traumatic calls, I I always envisioned it as being something like, you know, something a veteran would get, like when you go to war or military, or if, you know, you had got like physically shot at and stuff like that. Like that's how I always saw it. But I never knew, and I don't think a lot of first responders, and this is how it creeps up on the average, I will say, first responder, is the accumulative toll of not properly taking the resources. And I say that with a grain of salt because we can come back to that. Um, taking the resources and actually utilizing them. So like going to the dentist to make sure that you have no cavities, right? Using your benefits proactively for that. No one makes fun of Bruno or Keith because we decided to go see the dentist, and no one calls us an idiot because you can't brush your teeth. Why do you need to go see a dentist, right? Well, no, I go see a dentist because I know oral health is for overall health. I'm not made fun of because I can't brush my teeth or floss because I go to the dentist. So why is it when somebody uses their benefits proactively to see a psychologist, it's looked bad upon? Yet, no, I'm just doing a check from the neck up to make sure that I'm good so that I don't get that way. Like, I think the mindfulness of making sure that we introduce a collective community amongst first responders, and even like outside, like just in general in the world, that this is something that everyone should have access to, but first responders particularly should be doing this and feel comfortable that it's something that we're doing that is beneficial. And I say resources are accessible because for myself, I knew there was a lot of resources, and at times of trauma, it was mentioned, but it was like with a chuckle, like,
Right.
hey, we have this, let's go drink some beer, right?
Yeah.
Or if you do that, you might be seen as broken, or you might be seen as something that nobody kind of wants to be around. You're going to be one of those people. And
Same in the military. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that divide like really has to be scrubbed out. Like there is no line of that. Like you're doing it because, like I knew there was times where I was like, why is anyone talking to me? Like I really want to talk about what I've just been through, and I can't deal with this. Or
because what we saw was not normal.
Right,
None of what we saw and we deal with was normal.
Yeah. Or there was times I started to cry in the middle of a call, like just overwhelmed. I'm starting to cry because I feel so horrible because everything's my fault, even though nothing is my fault. And it's like, stop it, suck it up. Like, you can't do that. Get back into work. You're like, okay. But then because you've kind of sucked that in, you don't even get that chance to ride that emotional trajectory of completing that grieving, right? Because I started to it, but now I have to hold it back in. And now I have no real safe place or person I can feel I can turn to talk to that is going to hear me and like hear me speak, right? Or the next time that comes up where I want to feel emotions of something because I'm upset or sad, no, my brain has now triggered or taught my body I can't do that. So then again, I'm holding that in. And having a lot of that continuous going at calls, not being able to be really true with, identifying your feelings and really working that stuff out, and kind of sucking it up all the time, eventually, like, you're going to get to that elastic band stage and just be like, stretch the max where either I can't stretch anymore because I'm going to break, right?
Right.
And that's the Achilles unit thing, right? And it's over and over and over. And
I
for
use
my,
the metaphor of a bucket, the shit bucket, right? That you
yeah, no, that's a
constantly,
great one, right? Yeah,
every day you put the stuff in, because that's one of the that is probably what you said at the beginning, is that it's not like going to war. It's like, it's cumulative. And that is the secret right there that I think the audience needs to know. If there's other police officer or firefighters or first responders out there, this is what you need to hear. This is exactly what I get every single time somebody sits in front of me and talk to me. This is what they say: Bruno, like, something's wrong. I'm not too sure. It's not as bad as you, because I didn't go to Afghanistan and I didn't go to stuff, and I stopped them right there. And I said, listen to me, man. Like, PTSD doesn't discriminate. It
no,
doesn't give you less or more or whatever and what's good. That's the first thing. Second, I said, I went to Afghanistan twice for 7.5 months. And yes, was it intense? Of course it was, and all these things. But you've been doing this, Keith, for over 15 years, every single day, nonstop, for 12 hours every shift. Do you understand that? Like, people need to understand that. And when you go knock on a door or when you go to a call, it's not to go say to someone they're freaking awesome, right? You're going over there to deal with the less desirable of the society, the people who are in bad shape, the accidents, the deaths, the criminals. You deal with that every single time. So your PTSD is justified, right? And that lifts the weights off the shoulders. It is justified that you continue cumulatively filling that shit bucket, which I call, pardon my French, but it
okay.
needs to be said. And then every time we drop these little things, and then what happens is that when you face a personal situation with your family, with your spouse, with your friends and everything, and you're already full to the brim, that little curve on the glass that it's too full. And then that, which is nothing. When your wife says, take out the garbage. Can you take out the garbage? Yes, I'll do it in 5 minutes. And she does it 2 minutes later. That blows up and everything comes apart. And that's what happens. And then people are surprised by going like this. It's the whole bucket that empties. It's not just the drop that just make it. It's the whole bucket that empties. And those are the conversation we need to have, because, like you said, the benefits are there, but still the stigma and the old guard mentality of saying, hey, we don't talk about it. It's funny that you brought beers, because when I was at the fleet diving unit, I was told by higher rank than me, we don't talk about that shit. We have beers and we fucking forget about this. And then you have a bunch of drunk fucking dudes, is what it is. And it doesn't solve anything, it actually makes things worse. Instead of saying, hey, you know what? I just saw somebody dead now. So I'm going to go talk to the psychologist. Even though I'm feeling fine right now, I'm just going to go have a chat with them. Or if you actually want to have a chat with me about it, because they've been there, they've seen it as well, and all these things. But once again, people are afraid, especially men, to share, hey, man, that was pretty messed up. It affected me. Like me, when I got to a situation where a bomb had gone off in a school in Afghanistan, and you see little kid parts and shoes and all these things. And I said it right there. I said, this is fucked up. All right, this is fucked up. And when I wanted to talk to it about with the team, they said, we don't want to talk about this. Right.
Yeah.
Which we carry that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
No, and you mentioned that earlier too, with like the old guard. And I think what people tend to over and underappreciate is the male mentality of first responders. They always want, there's always guys working, but with that comes egos. And with, we all need to know, like, the ego is not your amigo. You need to drop that like a bad cold and not carry that around, right? Like, you need to get rid of that ego, because if you don't check your ego, there's somebody in this world that will check it for you and do a far better job of hurting you than you can hurt yourself when it comes to like trying to let your ego go. But with that, the old brass or the old guard, that machoism that really needs to be kind of settled, where we'll ditch that and just go with a human approach. A human being needs this, and it doesn't need to be defined as one other, because if we have male dominated mentality, even though we have fantastic women who do the job, they still feel like they have to hold that male machoism and do
Yes.
like that. And that's not healthy for them at all either, because that's not how we're not supposed to be. If we just take the human approach to the mindset of every human being's brain is built the same way, and your brain functions all in the same way when it comes to fight or flight when processing trauma, then let's just make it a human approach and just get rid of the egos and all that and treat people just as humans, right? And I think that would go a pretty long way of kind of like shattering the old guard mentality, because unfortunately there are people in positions now that are not going to get it. So if fantastic people like yourself, Bruno, are kind of looking for the future as far as, you know, teaching the next, you know, wave. You know, we didn't get this growing up. I think, you know, a lot of, I say this all the time to people, that I think we have a real gap of like 30 to like 50-year-old individuals in the world today that weren't brought up with talking about their feelings. You know, we were not taught finances in school the way I think people should be taught finances, but we're not talking about regulating our emotions, right? Because growing up the old way, like, you know, driving a car, you didn't have a seatbelt. What'd your mom do? Put your arm in front of you, right? That was a seatbelt for you going through the windshield, right? Suck it up. Somebody always has it worse. These one-liners that we were always brought up with, of like, you can't complain about if you have less than something because somebody else always has it worse. Always in this world, somebody's going to have it worse. But getting back to like the traumas and doesn't discriminate, you can never compare T's with somebody, right? Big T, little T, that trauma affect you, dude. Like, that's yours. And I'm not going to mitigate that in any sort of way to belittle your trauma because so-and-so swung off this and did all this and then end up getting it, right? Like, that's one thing that once I drop that ego of, well, I'm around all these veterans and I'm in this group talking with these veterans openly about stuff like, who am I? And I had, you know, guys, and I won't talk because it's group sanctuary, but like you said, like, I was off deployment for 7 months. When I came back, I had 6 months off. Yeah. Right. And then I went back. Like, how the hell do you do it? You do 12 hours and you're off for like, what, 8 because you commute, and then you're right back at it. He's like, you're never out of it. Like, you're never out of it. Like, I go away and do my deployment and then I'm off for 6 months, or I have a time off where I can kind of decompress. When do you decompress? How the hell would you? Hell, I would never be a police officer because I can never decompress. And that's the one thing with mine, the overwhelming of the accumulative, is that once I got to the point where, how the hell did I get here? Like, I'm drowning. How, like, I didn't even know, like, because you tread water so well for so long, and that one piece in the bucket that you said there, like, it overflows everything, and then you're overwhelmed and you can't seem to process anything. Like, I can't, like, anything is brought to me. Like, I can't even hear voices because I don't even want a question asked of me because I don't know how to help you because I'm so overwhelmed. I can't do anything. But then you're like
on autopilot, basically on survival mode.
How did I not see it? How did I not see it? How did I get here and not see it? Meanwhile, there was all these checkpoints of warning signs along the way. And I think the more we do of like being mindful of people, of recognizing these checkpoints, then you're not going to get to that point, right? That ounce of preventive and the pound of cure. I think so much all the time. If we put, say, a pound of preventative, how much yield would that do for first responders? How much yield would that do for the community that we serve? How much yield would do for them to serve their neighbor, right? Like, this is where we're getting to that massive butterfly snowball effect where it's just like beautiful, of like the waves of like taking all these smalls and accumulating them, and then how it can ripple to change is just, that's the world peace answer. I think that's the world peace, because everybody just wants to just be loved and be happy and all that stuff.
And hey, you're using my lines. Is that 7 billion people on this planet wake up every morning to be loved and valued? That's all it is. That's all it is. You can spin it anyway. I want anybody to challenge me on that of what they want. I'm going to tell you, every single human on this planet wants to be loved and valued. The minute
Yeah.
it's how they go about it that makes us different and has the thing. And now that we're talking about love and everything that should change, because that'll be the day when actually it is part of the training. It is part of everyday life that you come on your shift and go, hey, anybody need to talk about anything, make it today. We need you, or make it mandatory that every week you need to talk to someone, or whatever that is, especially for police officers and first responders. But here's what I'm going to ask you next is that what, once your bucket overflowed and everything came undone, what did you do? What are you doing now to kind of help yourself and go through all this stuff?
Yeah. So my journey of being off and stepping away from the service was 3 years. I thought maybe I would take a month or two off and be able to figure out what was going on. But like once you start unpacking things and unboxing, and it's not just one thing. It's tethered to something else and to something else, and you're really having to like scrape out all that crap in your box to heal again. I was really blessed with programs through Wounded Warriors. I will speak highly of them every day of the week.
Scott Maxwell. Great
when I didn't even think as a first responder, because again, Wounded Warriors, I'm thinking veterans, they don't have stuff for first responders. But when I did realize they had programs for first responders, I was like smash clicking my computer of like how many I can sign up for. Like, when can I be on this waiting list for this one? And, with the trauma resiliency programs, you have to do one before you do two. You don't have to do two, but if you want to do two, you have to do one first. So it's going on the waiting list for that. And sometimes it was a year getting onto the programs and courses, because that's just how long the wait lists are.
How much the demand is.
Yeah. And then, when I got on the programs and really learned about how the human brain is, and like I said, like we're all the human brains are the same. I was challenged to bring up how my brain would be any different than anyone else's. And if I could prove my brain structurally was different than anyone else's in the history of the world, of all humanity, then I could have a case of my ego and my emotional feelings are attached to the trauma, but they're not. It's just, it's our brains, and we have to really disconnect that to our injuries. And I always had that, like the two questions at the end of the day is like, when I finished a program, it's like, you kind of kick yourself in the butt a little bit. Like, why did I not do this earlier? Right. And I think with anything, when it comes to getting assistance for somebody's mental health or for anything, they're only going to do it when they're ready. Right. We can provide them a map. We can be a safe place for them to be once they're ready, but no one's ever going to do the work unless they're ready to do the work. And at some points, even though I thought I was ready, I wasn't, but I have to I have to be kind to myself and forgive myself and be kind of the self-talk of like, hey, well, you did it now what's your next step? Right. And then the next step being is like, how does everyone not know about Wounded Warriors and this program? Because my gosh, like everyone should be on this program. I know so many people that would benefit this program, and I always get the one-liner back, like, we'd love to run this program 24/7, but Keith, it costs money. And benefit to me, like, yeah, it was all provided to me. Like, I didn't have to pay a dime for any of this because of corporate sponsorship, donations, all these things. So that kind of like got me into a place of, once I got to a true place of healing with a lot of my stuff, and it's still on a daily where I have to be mindful. And we were talking before the show started about some things that might be able to release some other stuff that I'm dealing with and stuff like that, because I will never, ever take the position that I'm completely healed and perfect, because I don't think anyone ever is. It's always, being mindful of the dark spaces, and that we know the checkpoints of how we're listening to our bodies, listening to our minds, so that we don't fall back into those, because, certain situations can have us right back there. But it's us kind of having those tools and resources of working to a point, okay, well, I recognize this is where I'm going, and I'm not going to go this. I'm going to do all these things to help me not push through it, but healthily get back to aligned and living well. So when I was thinking about coming back and working, I was like, what can I do? Because as much as I, would love to just tag team onto somebody else or ride somebody else's coattails, I kind of I've always liked the way I do things. And I'll always be mindful of like, well, hey man, Bruno did that. I like what he did there. So I'm going to take that little bit and I'm going to add it to my toolbox. Or I'm going to add that person did something really nice. I'm going to take that and kind of make it your own, right? Make it your
Yeah.
own way of doing things. So I figured, what is my way of taking all these different little things that I've learned amongst my path, my recovery, my journey, that I can help for other people. And that kind of came with the apparel company that I started because
Yes. Tier response apparel.
so what are things that people are going to want to wear? What are things people are going to want to buy? What things that can I provide that are going to get funds truly? And that's what this is, the active service of getting funds to these programs to allow one more guy or two more girls or a couple come on a program that they just weren't able to get, but because of what I'm doing, we're able to get one more seat filled or one more couple the help they need or one more therapy dog through the program.
To whichever program. So is that what Tier Response Apparel is all about? Is that why you created? Tell us about that, because are you raising funds for Wounded Warrior or are you giving to different types of programs? Let us know about that, because that's the whole point.
Yeah, no, and that's it. It's like a true act. So I started Tier Response Apparel because I kind of wanted to think of something that would connect with first responders and not be like something else. And if people don't know, and I think, your audience is pretty, mindful of, first responder lingo, but a Tier Response is something in which.
Just 1 second. Is that your dog? Yeah. Somebody's at the door.
No, I'm not. I'm mouse probably farted somewhere and she's barking at it.
Oh man, those puppies, I love them. I got 3 of them myself.
Yeah. She's the oldest one. She's 7. The other 2 are sitting here doing nothing, and she's just kind of walked off barking. Yeah.
She's going senile. I got one of those too. So let's get back into this. So first of all, for the audience that might not know, Tier, so TIER, Tier Response. What does that mean? Let's just explain to everybody what that means.
Yeah, no. So that is driven from the dispatch call in which an incident requires multiple first responders to attend a call. Sometimes it's known, sometimes it's unknown, but you need that tier effort, that old village effort to attend something, because an incident, they may not know what they need. We may not all show up and they only need police, or they only need fire, or only need ambulance, or we all work together. And the great thing in always working in a village effort, and I feel working in a tier effort that I've ever been to any sort of calls like that, is that you really have that sense of connective, inclusion of working together, leaning on somebody's strengths, people leaning on your strength, or learning through other people. And I think if we approach mental health in the tier response of everyone kind of working together to have a resolve or a better understanding or acceptance when it comes to mental health, and we're all working together, learning resources, building tools so that we can effectively come to a healthy resolution. That's where the tier comes from. That's where the tier response from. That's the whole mindset of this. And it's not just police, fire, ambulance. We're talking about the civilian members who always get overseen, that do just as amazing work as, uniform, but they're somewhat forgotten,
Mm-hmm.
Nurses, doctors, our corrections, our military, which I think highly of so much, that it's all different branches of that, but together we all play a role in coming together, working. Police can't do it all, fire can't do it all, military can't do it all. Coming together, that's when we're getting all the good stuff together and really working together in that village, that camaraderie of problem solving and coming to effective conclusion of things.
Yeah, and that's just it. It's the team effort, because a lot of people don't know this, but when we go on tour, we have police officers with us. We have firefighters with us that are not military trained. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they come in, you guys came in, it was RCMP, it was from all across Canada to basically train the Afghan police. And they were there doing that work, because even though we have military police and we have military firefighters and we all these things, the thing is that there is a different approach when you're talking to the civilian and what we do within the military. And it's the same thing. And once again, we have civilian entities that do deploy with us to cook, train us, do a whole bunch of stuff. They work as nurses. They work all of these different positions as well. Then they're often forgotten. So thank you very much for bringing that up, because anywhere that you go, and it's very, very difficult in this society, because when you look at the social media, you always see the Zuckerbergs and the Bezos and the Bill Gates and the athletes and all these things. And I'm going to tell you that these people didn't get there on their own. This is what I'm talking about, is that it's a team all the time. And it's so good that you bring that up, because once again, we know how to do the work together. We train together. What about healing together? Right?
Yeah.
What about healing together? I think is the next approach. So what does Tier Response Apparel, what do you do? Is it ball caps? Is it t-shirt? What is that all about? Like, tell us what you got as your product, and how does it work?
Yeah. So currently we have a couple variants of logos. So we have the maple leaf, again, who doesn't like the maple leaf? I love the maple leaf. I love sporting that everywhere I can, as being, somebody who's truly proud to be Canadian. And then, really in our apparel, through the, hats, toques, t-shirts, tags, hoodies, that we have rolling out right now. It's very prominently displayed on the maple leaf logo, and our shield logo is at the semicolon. And it's something that, if people don't know amongst the mental health community, that semicolon, beautiful, and that's a connecting point, right? People just don't know. And, people always, think as, well, I use semicolons because I'm articulate and I have proper grammar and it's story writing.
You're a geek if you're using it for real when you're writing.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this in here to make my sentence look fancy. But what people really don't know is that semicolon is really inserted when we have writer's block, right? So if we take that to our day to day, right? If we have a mental health block or emotional block where we just need to rest, right? Insert that semicolon in our lives so that we're not ending it by suicide and taking a life, right? We're inserting that semicolon so that we can be okay with not being okay. We can seek the treatment, the resources, lean on a friend, do whatever we need to do. If that's just staying in bed for a day and resting because that's what my body needs, I'll do that, right? To recharge. And then I can forge on healthily, right? Rather than putting that period in and ending it because, just this week I got news of somebody in my life that I was close to ended their life. And, the what ifs creep in of, like, if they don't know what I was going through, because I'm here, I don't keep myself private. It's out there. If only they knew, maybe I could have done something, or maybe I could have connected with them or got them to do that. But like, really prominently showing that in our apparel really connects the mental health aspect of what we're trying to do here, what I'm trying to do, to have a talking point, because it's not just much seeing, the firefighter logo or the staff of Mercury for medical or the chevron for military and corrections, or, the EMS for fire patches, when the shield logo or the maple leaf. It's like, well, what's that semicolon? Well, now we're engaged in a conversation, Bruno. Now we're having that conversation with somebody, like you have a tattoo on your hand regarding that. You're in the conversation about what that means and how much it's so much bigger than.
It's why I got it there. It's why I got it on my hand, because so many people come up. The people that know, and they give me a wink and they go, "Good job." And then the people that don't, they go, "Why is the semicolon?" And I always said, similar to what you said, is that the semicolon is used when the writer could have ended the sentence there, but decided to continue on. Right. And that's exactly what it means. And then it just blows people's mind, and it opens a conversation right there, right? Because we all know that suicide doesn't end the pain, it only reassigns it. Right.
Right.
And that's what we got to talk about it. And the conversation, once again, it's got to talk about it. And what do you find when we talk about it, Keith, is that a lot of people, I'm going to say once again, we know that men, women, children now, especially through the pandemic, all suffer and have pain, and they have mental health pains and everything. And they think about suicide. They all do. How a lot of people think that when you're going to talk about suicide, or they don't want to say, "I want to kill myself," because then the sirens go off, everybody start making phone calls and all these things. it doesn't need to get there, because I'm going to tell you pretty much everybody that I lost to suicide, they were laughing with me the night before. And they were having it, it didn't show compared to the people that you could see and say, hey man, I think this guy's going to off himself, which they don't. So we can never know what's going to happen. But the thing is a lot of people think that if you ask to have a conversation to talk about something, it needs to be this big Mount Everest of a conversation. And here's what I would like to share, and maybe you can add on to that, Keith, is that it doesn't need to. We can watch a show together. We can listen to some tunes. We can go for a walk, and you can talk as much or as less as you want. All I need you to do is tell me, hey, I want to hang out, or hey, can we just chit chat? I don't know where to start. And then maybe I'll start the conversation about it. What if I share about what I'm going through, and that's going to give you some idea? What do you think? How do you start those conversations?
I think you're nailing it right there with the latter, but mentioning on it before that it doesn't need to be this Mount Rushmore of a topic, right? And I think so many times that's what people feel, that, well, if I'm gonna talk about what I'm going through, it has to be done in one conversation. And what we Bruno, what we both know, know this, it's not going to be a one conversation. Like, it's a lot of like hard work, probably the hardest work I've ever done in my life. It sucks. Like, there's no way around it. Getting through your feelings, working out your stuff, it sucks, but it's so worth it once you do and you get on the other end of it. I think something that I look at you, and I've, listened to the podcast in the past, and I've kind of learned a little bit what you're doing and learned a little bit more when we first jumped on here. I think what you're doing here is a credit. So that just being a symbol, just being that beacon, so that you're out here doing what you're doing, and that if someone's looking around the room that's struggling, they look at you. And that's how I'm taking this approach, right? Like, I only started it this year. Like, I'm really new to, like, I've always been giving back. I've always been that guy that always wants to be there to help other people. Maybe I don't do it so much for myself, but really on this like platform of really giving back to these organizations that I'm working with and doing the apparel and all that stuff, as being somebody that I needed 10 years ago. That when I looked around the room, I didn't see somebody who was thriving, that had been through the shit and is now in a great place, right? In the past, we had those people get sent off to the land of lost toys, where you're perceived broken and not useful and tarnished, and made the example of, don't be like that, because if you do, that's where you get sent, and nobody wants to get sent there because of all the stigmas associated to it. So I think as individuals, as ourselves, doing what we're doing is being that person that at least is being present, so that we're openly talking about what we've gone through, to allow somebody a space that they can approach us or communicate the changes that need to be made in the community, in the institutions where this needs to be open and safe for people to come to and that want to come here. And if I do come to you, that there's a sanctuary. When we have a conversation in private, Bruno, that's between you and me and nobody else. And loose lips sink ships. And a lot of people don't come forward, because as soon as they do, whoever they spoke to goes tell a person, and then they tell two, and then it's all over the place. And that's not what it's about. You got to protect that person's
sacred space.
Right. Yeah. You got to protect that, to know that you're not going to spread that out, because why am I going to talk to you if it's just going to be aired to somebody else? I don't want to air it to everybody else. Right.
Right. But let me play the devil's advocates for the person that wants to sit there with that, Keith. I think because that's another part that's not being talked about, is that a lot of people care and they don't think they're ready to help someone who's suicidal. Okay. So if you're listening, pay attention to what I'm going to say here. So what you're saying, we got to protect the sacred space, that somebody's confiding in you that they're having a hard time, and we should not share this with anybody else. But then the mindset goes, well, if this person wants to kill themselves and I don't tell someone, I'm going to be held responsible for it and everything. So that's the thought process that also goes for the person who's receiving that information. And here's what I'm going to tell you. You do not need any training. You do not need all these things. You can say one thing that I usually say. I say, hey, listen, man, everything that we say together, it's going to stay between us, you and I, unless you identify that you're in danger. that you're going to hurt yourself or you're going to hurt somebody else, then I might have to tell someone. But whatever we say together, and it's going to stay here, and it's going to be sacred, and I'm going to keep it here, and I'm going to do my best. And most of the time, people, even though that I'm trained and a coach, executive, and neuro-linguistic programming, and all these things, most of the time, I'm only listening. That's all I'm doing. I'm just listening and asking some questions. Oh, okay. What else? We got to stop thinking that we need to fix shit. We don't need to fix anything. The individual will figure it out by hashing it out, by speaking, by letting everything else. They just need you to create the space. Would you agree on that?
I would totally agree with you on that, Bruno. And I would like to further just kind of clarify this happened for me, is like when I did reach out to what I thought was a proper chain of command of like, I can't do this anymore. I need off the road, or I need to go do this. That's where I felt I kind of got left down, where it's like, I'm telling you what I need, but you're not going to help me because that causes a problem. That causes paperwork for me, or we can't lose you because we need numbers on the road and we're already short. So we're not going to allow you. I think that's where I was kind of getting at with my comments earlier about like, I did all that. Like I cried in front of people that I thought I would never cry in front of when it came to asking for help. And I think a lot of the moral injuries with that and getting through all that stuff is more hard than actually some of the traumas, because I thought I did everything right. Like I gave everything I gave you my best. I don't even get your good, right? I want the best return to us. But then also, you touched on it there about, making sure that we're listening. And that's the big thing too. Like if I did wrong, nobody needs to tell me I did wrong, because Bruno and I already know that we're kicking ourselves inside about how much I messed up. I don't need to get yelled at to know I did wrong. And the same thing about trying to fix something. A lot of times you just need that soft sounding board where you're just talking on. And by the time, I think we both had it where I figured it out. I don't need your advice. I just talked it out with you, and I realized connecting what I need to do. You're awesome. And meanwhile, you're sitting there like, be thankful for I didn't do anything. No, you.
So many times I was told I was awesome. I didn't say anything. Right?
But you allowed that space for that person to really work it out, and that's all they want, right? That's all they really want.
Because the answers that we need are all inside of us. Your answers that you need, Keith, is your answers, and whatever you're going to need to do to heal yourself, only you knows that. And that's what I'm saying. We could use all kinds of different methods. You're going to find it out. And like you said at the beginning, I'm going to take what Bruno said. I'm going to take what Bob said. I'm going to say what Mary said and all these things. Here's what I tell everybody. No matter if you have trauma or not, as you go through life, somebody has a piece of your puzzle, and you need to put it together. That is our job. So, when I went and I trained with Tony Robbins, he had some of the pieces of the puzzle. Then I went and trained with Erickson. They had some of the piece. And then I did the NLP. And then most of all is the people that I met, that I've had conversation with, complete strangers, had a piece of my puzzle, right? So I'm putting my puzzle of what worked. And once again, we talked about different ways of healing before this. And those pieces of puzzle came later on. And now we're going to make them more accessible and all these things, which is going to help a lot of people. But once again, we got to make sure that it doesn't matter. This is very important. It doesn't matter the amount of pills that you take, the amount of procedures that you do, and all of these things. You need to be ready to do the work, because nothing will be a one and done. You're going to have to sit down and you're going to say, okay, we'll take an example here. I'm going to deal today. There's this reoccurring call that I did about this kid that committed suicide. I'm making this up, guys. So, and then I'm going to work on this, and I'm going to really do the work, the spiritual work on it, and saying it wasn't my fault. And I'm going to do that work. And then you're going to feel better. And people say, oh man, I feel better. I'm laughing. I'm doing these things. And then all of a sudden, boom, something else shows up. Guys, that's how it works. It's like a big onion that when you peel one layer, another layer shows up when you're ready for it. And then another layer. So it's a never ending. And I love that you said that earlier. It's Am I ever going to be healed? I don't know, Keith. I'm 48 years old. I got 48 years of trauma to deal with. Even though that
Yeah.
I'm doing some great progress, I am now realistic about the fact that I do have my dark days. I do have my issues. And then sometimes when I'm having a great day, something triggers me. There's my next step. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And I can't believe as I'm talking to you that you're 48, you look better than I am. I'm only 42. So good on you. Good on you. I want whatever skin regimen
French
cream.
oil of Olay twice a day.
But no, you're right. Like you have to really have that mindset of what your intentions are, right? And when we actually do get said procedure or counseling or treatment done, like I said, the first thing when I got done a program, I started kind of kicking myself, like how much better my life would have been if I had done this a year ago or 10 years ago. And we really have to stop that living in the past mentality of like, well, I've done it now. The fact is, I now have this tool now. How am I going to utilize it the best as possible moving forward so that the future, looking towards the future, right? Rather than looking into the past of like, well, what if I use this? I could spend a year waiting on wondering why I didn't use a tool a year ago. Well, now I've just wasted 2 years on a tool that I should have had at least 50% of my time using, right? So like really being kind to ourselves with that about what we acquire along the lines of helping us move forward in a healthy way. And, if something works for somebody else, I don't want to cheerlead, but at the same time, I'm proud of that person because what might work for somebody else may not work for me, but we can't really judge in that sort of way. We only can encourage somebody that your tool will eventually come along to help you when you have it or when you're ready or when you're accessible to it.
Yeah.
And so that when we see other people, like, again, we're not comparing teas or all that stuff, they're doing what they're doing. And if at the end of the day, that's making them happy, that's making them live life, well, who am I to say anything negative about how they're not hurting anybody, they're not hurting themselves, they're not hurting somebody else? Forget it. Like, right, you said 7 billion people just want to wake up every day and just feel loved, right? If that's the way that they're feeling it and that's the way they're getting it, then who am I? Nobody.
Awesome. That's fantastic, Keith. So next question is what's next for you, man? What's happening?
So with the apparel, like it's coming out slowly. We have a few lines out right now. Have another one that I want to release hopefully before Christmas this year, and really get those funds to Wounded Warriors, because right now 20% of all the profits for the sale of the apparel go to Wounded Warriors. Over this last year, I've worked on a few events where there was like a one-time event where they wanted donations and raffle prizes and stuff like that I'm all for. Really want to strongly link up, having the forging of my link in the chain of the change for mental health and really linking up with other organizations. So we often look at apparel when we're out and see that it's like one, like us versus them type mentality. And I really want the Tier Response apparel to be something that anyone who supports, is a mental health advocate, who is a first responder, supports first responders, can feel comfortable wearing, so that like when we wear red on Fridays, we know when we wear red on Fridays, it's to remember everyone deployed, right? Mm-hmm. And if someone in that community sees red on Fridays, they know, or they make the assumption and the connection that that person sees me, they value my service. Same thing with Tier, although I'm never going to compete with Red Friday. I'd love to align with them on some stuff, but the whole mentality of like the apparel and what that brand image of it is that, when we wear it and somebody sees that who struggles as a first responder, man, that person sees me, they bought this because they know portions go towards trauma programs and fundings for services, so that I can have access to it, or someone I love can have access to it, or my partner can have access to it. And really awesome. Be a symbol of, words without words, right? They can just see it and know that represents a true will of change for mental health amongst first responders, and it's supporting, and it looks and feels good too, right? Because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's
Everybody likes to wear their colors, right?
right.
To
Yeah,
show that
and
what they're supporting.
as veterans and first responders, I think we will both agree. And I joke with people all the time: you ever want to find the best places to eat, just look where the first responders are, because we are going where the food is best, right? So I really want to have apparel that isn't like just a one your wash machine takes it for a ride, destroys it. Like it's something that if you're out on the town, you're proudly wearing. You're maybe crushing a workout, you're happy to put on for that workout, or it feels okay that if I need to be in this shirt for 3 days because I'm not okay, and I've been longer than 3 days,
Yeah.
that it's something that I know that's with me, that I'm okay to be in. Like it's something I can immerse myself, wrap myself in as some kind of support, or I might look at and be like, you know what, that might get me out of my thing, because I'm going to go put that on and go for a walk, or I'm going to go put that hat on and go for a walk. And who else doesn't need another ball cap or a toque in Canada? Because why not, right? So
exactly. And you know what? It does make a difference to put on a piece of kit like a t-shirt or a ball cap or a toque, like you said, or a hoodie, because it puts you in a state. And like you said, like, there's certain shirts that I put for workout. There's certain shirt that I put when I'm outside. And I'm going to tell, this is one of my favorite shirt is my airborne t-shirt from my jump course that I bought. Like this, I did this jump course in 2000. So it's 21 years old. And I break it out a few times a year because we used to call it the bulletproof shirt. And the thing is that I wear it when I want to feel bulletproof, when I really, because it means something to me. So I'll usually wear it for a hike with my pack on, or I'll wear it for a really hard workout or something like that, because at that point in time, I do need that support, that what it meant to me back then and who I was. And I want to bring that state back. And that's how powerful the brain is. It makes that much difference. So I highly recommend for people that are listening to this, that if you're into that type of stuff, go check out Keith's website, which we're going to give here at the end, because I got only 2 questions for you, Keith, is that what is the best piece of advice you've ever received? Regardless of, it doesn't have to be mental health. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Well, I go back to my late friend's father, who told me that if you have options to pay 2 things in life, if you have a choice, if you have payment for 2 things, and it's either paying your car or your rent, always pay your car, because you can sleep in your car and your house, but your house will never get you to your work, right? So pay your car so it gets you to the job to make the money, because if you just pay your rent, that can't get you to your job. So pay your car. That's probably like one of the big things I've kind of learned when it comes to that. So
I like that. That's,
you can sleep in your car. You can sleep in your car. You can't drive your house.
That's practical. I love it. That's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
And the last one, Keith, is what piece of advice you would give to our listeners here?
Speaking from my trauma recovery, is that everyone is worth it. There are times in my life where I openly said, I'll wait till my next life to enjoy or be happy or feel loved. We don't know. That's not guaranteed, right? But everyone is worth it. And I will happily talk to you openly about what you're going through and give you that space to go through what you need to go through, or allow a change in society that I want to be a part of, that feels everyone can say what they need to say to feel loved, rather than ending it, right? I don't want suicide to continue. I don't want mental health to continue. Nobody who under this type of duress would ever wish this upon anyone else. I clearly never wanted to go through it. Never thought I could ever go through it. But again, it doesn't. It's not immune to anybody, right? Nobody has the immunity for it. It affects everybody. So I can just say, you're worth it. You are absolutely someone who can feel love or be loved. You just have to align yourself with people that will see you for you. And once you do, man, we talked about it earlier, having a superhuman strength of once you become that beacon where you're no longer chasing and you're absorbing the energy of the world and having people that you're connecting with that are aligned with, it's just, you can't have a bad day some days because it just feels so good. And that's what you want to do. You just want to continue feeling good. And it's attainable and everyone's worth it. So if there's a time in your life that feel like you're not worth it, totally are. And I am so blessed for what I have received post-traumatic growth for myself that are beyond any sort of wild dreams that I could ever think of. That
Life on the other side of trauma is beautiful.
I am so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for it. And the fact that I have this on the other side of that, again, it's beautiful. And it's something that you're going to be forever grateful for and appreciative and never want to spoil or never want to break and always be open and trust with. You're worth it. Also, I got to say, everyone is worth it. Awesome. So don't let your brain think otherwise because you totally are.
Yeah, your brain is lying. Trust me on that one. So, Keith, thank you so much for being on the show today, opening up and being vulnerable and having these conversations. It is so needed. The only way we can start changing things is by having these conversations. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so we're the website is tierresponseapparelcompany.com. That has the store where you can purchase all your gear and have it shipped right to you. We're also on social media platforms, Instagram and Facebook right now, working with some people to kind of clean up the branding image of communicating what we have. But if on Instagram at TR_apparel co, that is basically just a community which I want to highlight and align with programs and services, as well as individuals who I think are described no other way as absolute champions who have struggled. I look at you, bro, and what you're doing, buddy. Like, you're a fucking champion, man. Like,
thank you.
To go through what you've gone through, and now you're in a place where you're, thriving and helping others see and work through their stuff, and at a respectful pace where it's not pushy, it's not, in your face. You're a champion, right? Like, that's a champion. That's the definition of a champion in my mind. If I can highlight people like that, so, I don't see my story as being inspirational to someone else. I always look at other people and be like, man, like, Bruno's inspiring, my friend Carl, he's inspiring to me. But I
think that's another lie. That's another lie that we tell ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, like you said, everybody's worth it. Everybody's story is important, and you need to stay around to tell it. Yeah. Because, like I said, everybody's got a piece of the puzzle, and everybody's got a flavor that's going to help someone. You're going to help a lot of first responders, and you already are. And you're going to help some veterans, and you're going to help some stay-at-home mom that has seen some great things. And that's just the thing, because you know what? I had that mentality when I first started. What do I have to say? I'm all messed up. I'm broken. I got nothing. Marriage came apart, everything. Like, I'm no good to nobody, right? Yeah. And now here you go. And that's all we can do is show up. And like I said, there's nothing to be said. So Keith, thank you so much. Guys, we're going to put all of Keith's information and everything in the description below, all of his links and his bio and everything. And go and give him a look, give him a like, make sure you give him a follow. And same thing for us. If you like these episodes and you want some more, tell us what we want to hear about it. Give us a like, a subscribe, and then we'll see you on the next episode of The Battle Plan.